Hi, my name is Sherrie, and this is my story. I spent a lot of years in my life searching for something I just didn't know what it was. I never felt good enough. I was never smart enough, never pretty enough, never thin enough, never, all the superficial stuff that's out there, I felt like had been drilled into my head, and I tended to just isolate from people. All that really mattered was what you had or who you knew or who you were, status, money, um, wealth were more important than anything to the people I was around. And I never quite fit in, but I stayed for far too long. Then in 2017, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer that had spread to the majority of my bones and my lungs, and it just fell apart. I felt like my life was over. I didn't have any purpose at that point. I had been a nurse and was working the day I was diagnosed. I ended up in the ER and had to have my lung drained and got diagnosed and never worked again. And work had always been my purpose, being able to help others. And when I no longer had that, I just felt empty. I was in a very controlling, unhealthy relationship that I knew I had to leave. I felt very alone, and I didn't feel like I had support. And I felt lost and empty, and I just didn't know what I was going to do. I wasn't sure if I wanted to live at that point. And when I made the decision that I wanted to live, I knew I needed to live differently. A friend of mine had told me about a church in the valley that had helped him quite a bit, and I wasn't raised with church, so I hadn't gone since I was a child. And I walked into this church and honestly just felt this overwhelming sense of love that I hadn't ever experienced before. Usually in a crowd of strangers you feel alone, but I didn't feel it here. It changed everything for me. I started reading and learning more about the Bible before I actually opened a Bible. I had read books about the Bible and tried to understand it. I read a teen version of a teaching Bible to try to understand the different stories. And what I started to learn when I started to study on my own was that Jesus loved me, and I was a child of God, and I had never felt like I belonged. I always kind of felt a little out of place. And the more I studied and the more I learned, I started to realize that I'm a child of God, and I shouldn't put down what our Creator made. I felt empowered, like He was on my side, and that I was never alone after that. All the things that I used to care about just don't matter anymore. Material things are just not important to me anymore. God's love is bigger than all of that. When you're stage 4, you go on a drug until the drug stops working. And then when that drug stops working, you transition on to another drug. So basically the rest of my life, I'm going to be on treatment. I've just found in my life that the biggest thing is having my faith outweigh my fear. When I'm afraid, when there's been times where things have changed and I've had fear, I talk to God about it and my fear just dissipates, and it's changed my world. I'm no longer afraid to die because I know what's awaiting me. Everlasting life with God. And that promise in itself has changed my entire life. It's allowed me to start living again and not be afraid. And now, honestly, I wake up happy every day. I wake up grateful and thankful for everything that I do have, and I'm no longer afraid. My name is Sherrie, and I believe that Jesus is the Christ and that He saved me.